Assalamu alaikum and hello. This is Faryal, and you're watching New Wave Global. Talk of the voiceless in any society, and no category symbolizes the term as literally as the community's animals. In a world where a genocide is afoot while civilized societies look on, it is no surprise that regard for animal life and limb is non-existent. In the month of June alone, there were at least 4 horrific reported incidents of animal abuse in Pakistan, not to speak of what happens out of sight 24/7. In Sangar, 8-month-old Cami, a female camel, was mutilated, her leg chopped off for foraging into someone's field in search of food. Dobby, the donkey, succumbed to his injuries after almost being beaten to death by the owner, with both his hind legs badly fractured somewhere in Hyderabad. While another donkey somewhere near Rawalpindi, I think this incident was probably not very widely reported in the mainstream media, he had both his ears cut off to avenge a land dispute between the owners. Another dog was thrown off to his death from the terrace of a building in Karachi. Now, the question that arises is, what makes humans so heartless as to do all of this to the voiceless and the most defenseless? I welcome here Todd Shea, founder CDRS Benji Project for Animal Welfare Pakistan, which is an initiative of CDRS Disaster Response Services, a non-profit organization registered in the United States and Pakistan. Todd is a singer, songwriter, philanthropist from Maryland, USA, who has worked with imprisoned children, responded to 9/11 in New York. He has helped build homes in Sri Lanka after the 2005 tsunami and has rescued animals during Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and since has been doing so in Pakistan. Todd, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Cami, the mutilated camel, after its rescue, is recovering at your animal shelter in Karachi. Just very briefly, give us an update on Cami, if you may.
So just today, the construction of a strong metal frame where Cami will be able to be harnessed and walk around. It's like an oval pattern, so she'll be able to have some roaming room for her physical therapy. That's being installed today. And of course, we have some camel experts with the Sindh government veterinary department who are looking after her physiotherapy and her rehabilitation. And then, of course, my shelter staff is feeding her, giving her care, love, support, whatever she needs, and following the veterinary doctor's orders that have been kind enough to work with us and support us. So she should, within the week, be getting used to that mechanism of being in the harness and helping her. The important thing is that Cami gets the physiotherapy. We've talked to some camel experts and livestock experts, not only in Pakistan, but around the world. And if Cami were to stay on the ground and not move at all during her time of healing her infected wound, which is getting better, she's improving every day. But without that physiotherapy and even some massage and movement of joints, those joints could freeze up and atrophy. It could be very difficult for her once we actually she's healed and ready to be fitted with the prosthetic limb. Then even if the limb is perfect, then her body will not be in the right shape. So a lot of people who don't understand, they criticize, and they all have their ideas that of how Cami should be treated. But actually, that even though it is a little painful and a little bit stressful for Cami, it's actually in her best interest to continue movement. because without that movement, it actually could put her life in danger. She could have sores develop, she could have bloating. There's a lot that can happen. We don't want to force her to do anything, but we want to encourage her. She tried to stand in the last couple of days by herself. And so she wants to get up and she wants to start moving around. So she's very happy. And we're very happy that this mechanism is now going to be in place as of today, that will be able to really be a huge aid in her physical rehabilitation.
Yeah, I saw a video of her on your Facebook page where she was making an effort to actually stand, and I'm sure the vets and you yourself are in the best position to decide what is the way forward. Now, animal abuse.
Well, I'm no veterinarian, so I ask a lot of questions, and some of the decisions that I make about the things that we need to purchase, and all those things that I have to decide about, I rely heavily on the veterinarians caring for the animals that we have in our shelters. We have 4 of them, and also I consult with a lot of veterinary experts around the world in a particular field, just to get some education myself when a new case comes along that is something that I'm not sure about. So we try our best, but the Sindh government livestock department doctors that we have been working with have been great.
Okay, so animal abuse and torture, they happen everywhere. The world is not an ideal place for animals, whether it's wildlife or farm animals or strays. Why do you think such brazen, violent incidents of abuse, like the ones that took place this month in Pakistan, why do you think they happen? What lies in the mind of an animal abuser? Is this some kind of personal frustration that comes out this way, some psychopathic behavior? What? Yeah.
I think that it's a combination of psychopathic behavior and trauma and frustration, just like you say. Unfortunately, human beings are also tortured, and we've seen recently that there's even governments that are claiming to be democratic and human rights oriented, either directly or indirectly participate in the torture of populations of human beings. And it's very sad. Human beings and animals are tortured in this world. It's a horrible fact. Psychopaths exist, evil exists, and a lot of trauma and frustration exists, where unfortunately, when it comes to children or a spouse or a coworker, an employee, or an animal, people that are angry and frustrated, or even evil, who have power over others, they often misuse that in the form of physical abuse and even mental abuse. And with animals, there's so much, especially our domesticated and agricultural creatures, there's so much reliant on their owners or the people in proximity to them. They're at their mercy, and some people have no mercy, so they just look at these animals as things to be used and abused. And it's really sad, but this is the situation. All we can do is try to, we have a lawyer that works with us, Altamash Saeed, who's opened up Pakistan's first law practice dedicated just to animal welfare. And he works with us, and we have all kinds of legislation and cases that we are involved in to try to make it harder for people to abuse animals and hold them accountable once they do. So that's something that is a new concept in Pakistan, perhaps, but it is something we're working on. It is something that we are seeing progress on. And there's many animal lovers in the government that are trying to help us with that. So we are hopeful that we can try to make it easier to hold people accountable, because once people are held accountable, then that does act as a deterrent, at least somewhat, for people to know that they can be punished for these types of things. The person that was that had broken Dabi's Legs was arrested, and there's been arrests made in Sanger, and that case is ongoing to try to find and make sure that the culprits and everyone involved in harming Cami is held to account and
Yes.
and goes to jail for this.
They will be punished as well, not just roam free on
I
bail
hope so.
the way it happens here. And I think
We'll do everything we can to advocate for that. Of course, our primary responsibility is
society has
to
to get together, the media, people like you, animal lovers, everybody has to,
absolutely.
combine their efforts, and that is how things will probably go in the right direction. And you're right that people think that animals were put on earth to serve human beings. They don't have any souls. They can't think or feel. So we may do with them whatever we feel like. Now, there's lack. Yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's in all religions in one form or another, but in Islam in particular, in the Quran, it says that we were put, I'm paraphrasing, but basically it's very clear and very black and white what it says, which is we are here to be the mercy for all of Allah's creatures. That was a purpose for us to be here, is to be a mercy.
Yes, that's what makes us Ashraf al-Makhluqat, the best of all the creations. But unfortunately, we don't live up to that definition.
Yeah.
Now, there's lack of legislation as well surrounding animal welfare in Pakistan, which again is not surprising considering that our human rights record is not very enviable either. The colonial era Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act dates back to 1890. That's a very basic legislation and is direly wanting in a lot of ways. Now, what are the areas of need that perhaps you would suggest to the government in order to propose fresh laws on animal rights and that would protect animals against abuse?
I think police forces all over the country and authorities, prosecutors, they need to be better informed and better trained, and better encouraged by the general public and animal activists and journalists such as yourself, to hold people accountable and to actually enforce, not only to create some new laws that are needed, but to enforce laws that are already on the books, as you've mentioned. And without enforcement, they're just laws written in a book somewhere. They have no teeth if they're not enforced. And if the law enforcement agencies don't have the will to enforce those laws and they prefer to look the other way, then people that do this know they can get away with it, and they'll engage in these things. So this is, I think, perhaps one of the most important things is to get the right laws on the books and enforce those laws and enforce the laws that exist in an aggressive way, and be passionate towards animal welfare, understanding that the whole society is going to be affected by this in one way or another, whether it's from Allah not blessing us or punishing us for our sins, or whether it's our children being in an unsafe situation. Because when animals are abused, sometimes they bite back. Dogs are abused and they're mistreated, and when they bite back and defend themselves, then we see a campaign of hatred to kill more dogs. But in the meantime, children are hurt by aggressive animals, and there's a reason why dogs become aggressive, because they've been mistreated all their lives and because their hearts are broken. They're domesticated. They came from wolves thousands of years ago. Human beings took them in and domesticated them, used them for everything from guard dogs to hunting to pets or whatever. And then we've abandoned them. So it literally in their DNA is to be with human beings. So their hearts are already broken, and then they're mistreated. And then their sense of smell is so much stronger than a human being's, and they can smell when a person hates and fears them. And so they respond to that hatred and fear that they literally can smell. So we have to have massive public awareness campaigns on animal behavior, in particular dog behavior, because I think the cruelty to dogs, along with livestock animals, is particularly bad. And we just need to understand that the whole society in one way or another, and the health of our children, the health of our environment and ecosystem depends on us caring for animals.
And as regards the laws, it is also suggested that perhaps the provinces should decide their animal and wildlife protection laws independently according to the local needs, which makes sense. I mean, and we know that with the polycrisis that faces Pakistan at the moment, the government does not consider animal welfare perhaps a priority. And despite the fact that Pakistan is a member of OIE, which is a World Organization for Animal Health based in Paris, which has set guiding principles on animal welfare. Prompted by international criticism over the Islamabad Zoo's maltreatment of elephant Kavan, which was dubbed the world's loneliest elephant, the Islamabad High Court issued an unprecedented ruling that the Islamabad Zoo should be shut down, which it did in the year 2020, and all animals to be transferred to wildlife sanctuaries. Do you think all zoos in Pakistan should be closed? I, for one, say they should be.
Yeah, I also agree. I visited Kavan, and we had one of our lawyers that we'd hired to work on the case of Kavan was very successful in working with others. We as an organization were only involved in helping with the expense, although we didn't personally involve ourselves because there were already great people handling it, and they handled it in a great way, but we provided support. I saw the conditions there and of other animals, and it's just like, you know, there's a couple things. It's a lot to unpack, but I really don't like zoos in the first place because of the cages. And the only zoos that are even close to being okay are those zoos that have the natural roaming range and habitat of an animal so that it doesn't feel confined, and perhaps it's well fed and taken care of. One can make the argument that if the animal has the proper habitat and care, that maybe that's okay. But when you keep them in a confined space in a cage, when they're just on display and not treated well, and the staff isn't trained, and the government isn't putting the expenditure needed so that the animal is looked after properly and cared for, then definitely there should not be a zoo. So I'm with you 100%.
And you know, the argument that people usually give in favor of zoos is that zoos provide a chance to learn about the wildlife, which is not true, since the wildlife the zoos are not their natural habitat. So they don't display natural behavior in there. It's just not possible to observe them in the way they would behave in their natural habitat. And also this kind of sensory deprivation under captivity can cause zoochosis that leads animals to display very disturbing behaviors like bar biting and pacing, and sometimes even leads to self-mutilation. So besides zoos, there are other forms of entertainment and activities that are abusive. We know animals performing in circuses, monkeys and bears with their street performances, which are very common here in Pakistan, not in all cities, but still in a lot of cities. And then there's the pervasive form of animal abuse, where there's this brutal practice of bear baiting and cockfighting. How can we also put a stop to such cruel practices that are performed under the guise of entertainment and sports, and which obviously they are not?
Well, you're speaking my language. I mean, I personally boycott all of these types of things. I won't involve myself. My family will not involve ourselves. Sorry, there was a fly that just buzzed by me, but I tried not to harm him. The thing is that it comes down to enforcement. Also, shaming. You know, we have to publicly shame the people who are abusing these animals. Somebody's got to speak up for the animals and speak up for.
I see any such thing happening on the road, I stop my car, I pull it over. I always tell them, don't do this. find something.
Yeah, we have to shame people, and
Yeah.
not confronting people is the right thing to do. It can be dangerous sometimes, but I suppose, but I think that overall societal shaming and making sure that it's looked upon by all society. So that has to be awareness and education campaigns for the whole public that have to be done. And it's not a one, it's many things that have to be done. Distributing flyers and leaflets and getting on the radio and TV. That's what my staff and I try to do as much as possible. And we need to do more, and everybody needs to do more. The animal welfare community in Pakistan is also a bit fragmented and sometimes in competition with each other. And sometimes for that reason, they don't like one another. And I think they need to start coming together for the cause, realize the cause is bigger than them and their egos and their agendas and their considerations, so that that can create something for people to gather around and be a part of. I would like to see more cooperation. Everybody's doing their own thing, but there has to be a consortium effort. And when it comes to children, they can learn about animals from seeing the wildlife photographers who know how to be non-invasive, but still get the shot and still be able to show animals in their natural habitat. And children, now we have the internet. Of course, seeing a live animal is a wonderful experience, but only if it's done in the most controlled and humane and proper circumstances. But we can learn about animals now with the internet and our phones without abusing these poor creatures and putting them through the hell that you mentioned. When I go to a zoo and I see a tiger pacing back and forth, incessantly compulsive, obsessive behavior, that is not in its natural state, and that is not something that is fun to look at. It's very depressing. And so we have to teach our children that this is not the way to observe animals. And if one loves animals, then they certainly don't want to do something or involve themselves in something that is going to emotionally and physically harm an animal.
Absolutely. So no better is our meat industry from, if you start from the process, right from the point of rearing till slaughtering. And as you just mentioned, Islam, Christianity, all religions forbid treating animals cruelly, stipulating how an animal must be slaughtered. In Pakistan, we have the Halal Authority Act 2015, which mandates humane treatment of animals throughout the slaughtering process and does not allow to let animals see each other's being slaughtered. Something that—
or even the blood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous how it's sad, it's ridiculous, it's infuriating and frustrating.
Very.
How, I mean, really what I tell people when I see it done this way, I have said to people, what's the point? Your slaughter and your sacrifice is rendered un-Islamic. It's rendered absolutely futile for you to there's no blessing associated with this, except for maybe the poor animal that has suffered would be blessed by Allah. But the whole point of this exercise is rendered, useless, fazul. And it's very sad to see how in a country that is an Islamic Republic does not people do not practice the proper way of slaughtering an animal. I just don't understand it personally. I don't. But I will also say one thing, that in the West, there are scandal after scandal after scandal of how animals are treated in such inhumane ways in slaughterhouses in America. And I think it's probably even worse there, because it's systemic and mechanized, and the workers they don't even care about the religion. They just there's not even that in the process. So there's big problems here with the process, the religious process not being followed and adhered to. But in America, there's just video after video after video and scandal after scandal, where these very brave PETA and animal activists have snuck in and secretly filmed those things that go on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it's
sure,
just
I'm sure a lot,
terrible.
yeah, it is. It is. I'm sure a lot of that happens in our slaughterhouses as well.
Of
Maybe
course.
not documented, but because if you take a look at our meat markets, if you go to them, or if you take a look at the roadside stalls where chickens are slaughtered, you know, it's totally unacceptable, and you just don't make any sense of it, that those poor chickens, it's literally the roof of the cage in which they are kept, which is being used for chopping, and it's being used as a cutting board. You go to main market Gulberg in Lahore, you see that all around, and every time you tell them to be more careful, not to do this, they would just laugh at you. I mean, they think it's nothing that we should be bothered about. So this happens here as well. And I'm sure if this is happening out in the open, behind closed doors, it's going to be much worse. And those poor chickens, they are so terrified, and they're just snuggled up in a corner of the cage. And usually the cages are so small, and they're all crammed, maybe 10 or 12 chickens crammed in, you know, a middle size or a small size cage. So yes, the meat industry.
Yeah, and they don't look healthy at all.
Yeah, it doesn't.
They look sick, they look traumatized, they look exhausted. I
Yes.
mean, I'm with you, and you know, until there's enforcement, until the government and the law enforcement agencies would start cracking down, and until there's more people like you, quite frankly, people like you that will speak up, and if they have enough customers that won't buy the chickens and won't participate in that, and will
yes, the
push
public
back.
should speak up,
Yeah.
and also I think there should be regular inspections of farms and slaughterhouses and meat markets and roadside chicken vendors. It should be the government's duty, maybe the wildlife department or whosoever is responsible, to make sure that these venues are visited, and they look into what is on there.
The SPCA, the law enforcement agencies, and the livestock department, all of them should collaborate together and work on this. I have seen with the Punjab police have started doing some collaborations with some of the including CDRS, Benji, as well as other animal rights organizations in Lahore and Punjab. So there's a start to it, because some of the police officers who love animals, they actually personally want to do something. Now it's up to them and us to figure out how to make it systemic, so that it's something that all police officers do, and that it's a priority of all police officers, not just a few that really love animals. So it's a good initiative, and I praise that it's happening, but we need to grow that. We need to start from that planted seed and grow a beautiful tree of life that helps sustain animals and reduces their suffering.
Yeah, that was my next question. In fact, that under the Punjab Police, a traffic police animal shelter, which is the first police animal rescue center. It was inaugurated in Lahore in September last year, where veterinary doctors and rescue staff and police team, they work together. And ASP Sayyida Sheher Bano, the brave lady who rescued a woman from a vigilante mob in Ichra Bazaar early this year in Lahore, she was the key force behind this rescue center. So I think we should have similar initiatives in Karachi and other metropolitans as well. It's very important.
Absolutely. I adore her. She's a friend of mine, and we've met several times. She's been to our Benzi shelter in Bedia, Lahore, and you know, I'm just a big fan of her. And we need more police and more citizens like her and you who really have some influence and some power to do something. And we need more. But it's very encouraging. And you know, I have to say that it's the ladies of Pakistan. I haven't seen that many men. There's a few, but it's women in Pakistan who I've seen at the forefront and being the most vocal, the most passionate, and forceful about this issue. And you know, my hats off and respect to them.
Thank you so much. If I were to say, add one more thing, I think what the traffic police can really do is also to make a law for the hit and run cases involving strays on the roads. Because, you know, when having run over or hit a stray, the motorist or the rider must stop and rescue the animal, or at least call for help. This should be incorporated into the traffic rules. Also, beasts of burden that pull man and merchandise, donkeys, mules, horses, they are overworked, they are overloaded, they are underfed, they are dehydrated, and they are whipped on the roads right in front of our eyes. Anyone whipping them, I think, should be booked as well. This is one thing that I really
Absolutely.
could become a part of our traffic rules all over Pakistan.
So we work with a rescuer. In fact, she's cooperating with us, and we fund her. Give Us Life Animal Welfare, but she's working directly with CDRS Benji now on our shelter in Lahore, Aniza Khan. And Aniza does donkey camps, and she works with various horse lovers and donkey lovers for the equine society.
Okay.
I forgot their name. Brookhaven, Brookfield. I'm sorry, I'm butchering their name, but she also cooperates with them, and we have supported her for many years. She has gone out into the field, and of course we need more. We need an army of Anizas, but she goes out and she teaches donkey owners how to, you know, she appeals to she tries to appeal to their good nature, but also to their greed, and says, if you do this and this and this and this, then the donkey will be happier and healthier, and it'll be able to do work without pain, and then you won't have as much of a problem. So if at the very least, by treating the donkey more humanely, feeding it right, taking care of it right, not being abusive, and making sure that the donkey is really well looked after, we're trying to convince them that that donkey will have more years and more productivity for them. I mean, it breaks my heart every time I see donkeys, you know, overworked.
Yeah, they're
But
really badly
at
abused.
least somebody's out there making an effort to teach farmers how to do it in a much more humane way.
Yeah. So this trend of keeping exotic pets that belong in the wild. Many people we know in Pakistan, they pay huge amounts to purchase lions and tigers and zebras, and then they're confined in homes under inappropriate conditions and environments that are certainly not meant for them. Are the wildlife departments, the provincial and otherwise, they're doing enough to check this trend?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the very last part.
Are the wildlife departments here in Pakistan, the provincial wildlife departments, are they doing enough to keep a check on this type of a trend?
No, I see it all over the place. You know, these guys, I don't know what their issue is, or why they think that having these animals as part of their ego, and they're a big tough guy and they have lions and tigers and whatever. I think it's a disgrace. I on one sense, I laugh at them because they don't realize what fools they look like to most people. But it's also very sad at the same time, because these animals are suffering, you know, and it's very dangerous for not only the animals, for these people and their families. Every now and then you hear of an animal, because they are wild animals, and you know, you can train them, you can do whatever you want, but once they get angry or hungry, or feel you know, that they have some way to get back, they often attack and even kill these people, which we don't want to see that either. So the thing is that these animals are too dangerous for people to have, and to have them, and to reduce a regal beast of the wild, like a lion or a tiger, to somebody's cartoon character mascot living in their house, and have them humiliated in that way, it seems to me just to be on the level of a farce. It's just a disgrace. There's no need or any legitimate reason to have such an animal in your home.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Unless you have a sanctuary and a license, and you have taken in abandoned cubs that were somebody else had trafficked. I mean, I'm not downing those places, but the people that, you know, they show their wealth and their privilege, and then that's part of their status symbol that they show these animals living with them. I just think it's an absolute disgrace.
It is.
And it needs to be enforced. And apparently it's not, because I see it all over the internet. People having these, I see them taken to political rallies, and it's mindless.
Also, there are some pet markets that also sell some exotic animals. And even if they're not exotic, I think pet breeding and selling business is, again, one of the most notorious. The Tollington market in Lahore, you must have heard of it, the horrible conditions in which they keep animals, and all of that, I think there's no way it can be justified, and needs to be looked into. So you write songs, and do you still record and sing?
Yes. As a
Have you
matter
ever
of fact, I
written
just
a
produced a
song?
song. I just produced a song that singer named Adil Latif, an up-and-coming singer, has recorded, and we're going to be putting it out soon. It's for animal rights and welfare, and
Yeah, that's what I was
it's a
about to
song.
ask. Do you have a song on animal rights? Okay.
Yes, it's getting ready to be put out in just maybe a week or two. We'll have the video done, something like that, and then we'll put it out. So yes, I still work on music, not as much time for it as I'd like. You know, I played music professionally and had a record deal, and worked for 20 years in the music field. 9/11 changed all that when I was there to do a concert that was scheduled the next day, and then 9/11 happened in front of me. I started working there and realized, you know, I had some abilities that I really didn't know that I had. And after that, I just felt compelled to change my life and respond to the needs of people who were suffering, and also animals. I've always loved animals since I was a child. I picked up stray kittens, and I could never see any animal suffering, and I'd want to help it. But now we're doing it in the professional sense through CDRS in the last many years. We've grown that project, especially in the last 3 years. The thing with the money situation that we face in Pakistan is that very few people financially support shelters and rescuers, animal welfare. There's not a lot of grants out there. We were very fortunate to get a really nice grant 3 years ago, but then that grant ran out. So we struggle, and we try to get whatever funds we can. And we have 4 shelters to keep going, and a fleet of ambulances. We have 7 animal ambulances. We're in Skurdu, Lahore, Goldberg Greens, Islamabad, and in Balir, Karachi. So for us to have, you know, we'll take a camel like Cammy, or an animal that is suffering, any day of the week, no problem. But if we have 250 animals at our shelter in Karachi, we can't possibly, we're full, right? And everybody wants to bring thousands of animals there. And there's millions of animals in need in Pakistan, and no one, not even all of the rescuers and shelters can take care of them all. They need funds to do that. So for us, an animal like Cammy comes along, and we can use the interest, the public interest, and the news channels. You know, I had kittens in my house, 6 kittens that I was raising during, because nobody else could take them at that time over the Eid holidays. And I had them in my house, bottle feeding them. You know, we take care of animals when there's no news crews around, and nobody wants to, you know, come and interview about some of those animals. You know, we don't get all the news channels. But Cammy comes along, and it's a big interest story. For me, that's valuable. because that is a catalyst for us being able to send our message that there's a lot of camis out there that don't get out. There's a lot of animals that are suffering. Please support our efforts. For me, collecting donations and getting attention for what we're doing is only useful for one thing. It's not for my personal bank account. It's not for my ego. Could care less. I was a musician who was getting fame before, and I didn't get into relief work and humanitarian work and animal welfare for fame or anything like that, which people often accuse because they just like to be negative and they have this negative mindset. But people should understand that if we're going to help as many animals as actually need help and want help and deserve help, then we're going to need more funds, because it costs money for medicines, it costs money for food, it costs money to build shelters. And, you know, at some level, I'm sure anybody would understand that there, you know, we're not independently wealthy with so much money lying around that we can just take care of unlimited number of animals and have people bring animals to us and we can always say yes. When we say yes, people say we're the good guys, but when we say no, we can't take anymore, then people vilify us and say, oh, you're taking money, but you won't help my animal. And we get mistreated online and abused. And it's very sad, as dedicated as we are to helping animals, then to also be abused and called murderers. You know, so I think there's a sickness in the society that does this. I wish people would realize that if they supported us and joined us and gave their little bit of time and effort and their little bit of money, and enough people did that, then we and other shelters and rescuers in Pakistan would actually have the support we need to take care of all the animals that need help, or a very large percentage of them. So we need to change society. We need to create a bigger donor pool.
Yes.
And we need to use this story of Cami to highlight the animal cruelty, to highlight the issues, to highlight the needs of shelters, so that we don't just help Cami, but we help thousands and thousands of animals, innocent, beautiful creatures like Cami. I hope that people see this, would understand that message and how important it is to have support. We can't do it all by ourselves.
Very right. And primarily, I think what we need to realize is that we have to raise awareness. We have to inculcate empathy and sensitization towards the fact that animals have a right to life, and without a life without harassment and violence, just like humans. And making animals suffer is, in fact, it results in a kind of an impoverishment of the human spirit, because those who are not kind to animals can never be kind to humans. And while in
That's
the
right. All of these serial killers and abusers and murderers who go out and kidnap and murder and rape, it's always, their story is always going back to a time of childhood trauma, and they started with animals.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a blueprint that we have for this kind of evil. So we have to work on so many things, but it's a test of Allah. It's a test for us all to try to do what we can, and to encourage others to join us and be a part of what we're doing, so that we can marginalize the people who are doing these and catch them, hold them accountable, so that at the end of the day, more animals are freer and happier and loved and cared for like they deserve, and less animals, and hopefully one day zero, would be mistreated.
Another thing which is very important is that while in the camel mutilation case, the animal's owner, he disclosed last Saturday, and it was in the news before the Court of Judicial Magistrate in Sangar, that the main suspect in the case was a local landlord, but police were protecting him and were not willing to arrest him. So I think also, if protecting the powerful continues to be the norm in Pakistan, justice can never be served, either for animals or for humans.
As a broader issue, you're right. Those who are powerful, they also should be held accountable. In this particular case, I honestly have not been aware of all the facts. My story that was given to me was that the landlord who owned the land rented the land to another person, and that person was cultivating that land with some people who were then partnering with them to cultivate on the land. And when this camel came wandering in, they did this very quickly without the knowledge of the landlord. I
That
don't know all
can
the
be a
facts. This is,
possibility. That can be a
Yeah.
possibility, but
but you're right. The courts
No.
and the police have to fairly and properly investigate this.
Yes.
Whether or not somebody's powerful or not should not be in consideration at all. I agree with you.
Yes, and that holds true in all cases, whether humans are involved or animals are involved. Todd, I'm very grateful to you for your time and your views. May you continue the very great work that you do. Till next time, Allah Hafiz and goodbye.
Thank you, Faryal. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.